Well, as Tanjiro opens his eyes again, he would see that his entire family is still alive, even his father. Confused, Tanjiro wouldn't immediately understand what had happened to him. At first, he would think it is some kind of trick, or maybe even a blood demon art of some demon. However, as time passes, Tanjiro would realize that all of this is actually real. As soon as he realizes this, Tanjiro would burst into tears, happy that he can spend time with his family again. He would vow to change everything bad that had happened to him in the original timeline and would try to make life easier for everyone. Unfortunately, he would quickly realize that some things couldn't be changed. For example, his father was already ill with an incurable sickness, and no matter what Tanjiro did, he would not be able to save him. Realizing this, Tanjiro would make sure to spend extra time with his father, learning more about the Hinokami Kagura so that he could further refine his own form of sun breathing as he grows up. One important thing to remember here is that even though Tanjiro was reborn with all of his memories, some abilities like breathing styles and total concentration would still take some time to learn. This is why he would take every opportunity possible to train, practicing even as a child until he is able to master most of the Slayer abilities. He would only be around 10 when he achieves this, becoming one of the youngest to ever master these techniques. Knowing exactly when his father is about to pass, Tanjiro would make sure to properly say goodbye to him and thank him for everything he has taught him. For some time after this, life would go normally for Tanjiro, up until that fateful day when everything changes. Knowing the exact date Muzan would attack his house, Tanjiro would make a plan. Instead of leaving his family at home while he goes off to sell charcoal, Tanjiro would come up with an excuse for everyone to go into town with him, attempting to hide them away from the attack. He would also consider defeating Muzan right then and there, but would realize that he's just not strong enough to do it. So everything would turn out great, right? Tanjiro evades Muzan and manages to save his family? Well, not quite. You see, although Tanjiro's plan would work at first, Muzan wouldn't give up that easily. Following their trail, Muzan would soon find them hiding in the village. That same night, he would attack the village, leading to many more casualties than before. Tanjiro would attempt to fight him, but would be easily dealt with and tossed aside. Muzan would then inject his blood into the rest of the family members, the same as he had before. Thinking that Tanjiro was dead, Muzan would then leave the village. Tanjiro would awaken the next morning to find Nezuko still breathing, and fearing what she might do to the surviving villagers, he would quickly set off with her towards Urokodaki's home. While on the way there, Tanjiro would blame himself for his family's death, saying how despite knowing exactly what would happen, he wasn't strong enough to help them. Soon after, Tanjiro would encounter Giyu again. Same as in the original, Giyu would attempt to kill Nezuko, but Tanjiro would easily deflect his attacks this time around. He would then tell Giyu that he would take full responsibility for Nezuko and that he won't let her hurt anyone. Giyu, though skeptical as ever, would decide to trust Tanjiro as he had in the original timeline, allowing them to go on their way. The pair would soon arrive at Urokodaki's place. Tanjiro would beg the former Hashira to help Nezuko with his hypnosis, and after some convincing, Urokodaki would accept. Now, although Tanjiro wouldn't necessarily need to train water breathing again, he would still take lessons from the former Hashira, hiding his strength for a time so that he could meet Sabito and Makomo again. In order to become an official Demon Slayer, Tanjiro would need to pass the final selection, but this time, he would apply a lot earlier as he didn't spend years training with Urokodaki. As soon as the final selection starts, Tanjiro would immediately track down the hand demon, slaying it with ease and saving countless lives in the process. Obviously, Tanjiro would pass with flying colors, joining the ranks of the Demon Slayers much earlier than before. He would also ensure that Sabito and Makomo are able to rest now that the hand demon is dead, allowing their souls to pass on. Now, even though Tanjiro would join the Slayer Corps earlier, he would still wait the entire 2 years for Nezuko to wake from her coma before he sets off and continues his journey. During those 2 years, he would go on a bunch of Demon Slayer missions, saving many people and becoming a well-known member of the Corps, with even Hashira knowing who he is. He would also hunt down the Swamp Demon early, ensuring the safety of many girls in the village by killing it before it can get to them. Once Nezuko finally awakens, the two would continue with their adventures. Knowing exactly what would happen next, Tanjiro would make sure to arrive at a few places at exactly the right time. First, they would travel to Asakusa, though Tanjiro would purposefully avoid the area where Muzan would be so as not to put any civilians in danger. Instead, he would track down Tamayo, ensuring that she can start the process of making the anti-Muzan drug they would need for the final battle. During that time, they would again be attacked by the two low-ranked demons, but with Tanjiro's strength in this timeline, he would defeat them with ease, not even taking any injuries. After finishing the business with Tamayo, they would set out once more, this time making their way to the drum house. There, Tanjiro would finally meet Zenitsu and Inosuke, making sure their friendship stays the same in this timeline. The trio would then take on the drum demon, defeating him with ease and rescuing the children trapped in the house. Soon after, the assignment from Mount Nataguma would come in, and Tanjiro would know exactly what he has to do. He would arrive on the mountain a bit earlier than before, running through all of Rui's family with ease before taking on the child demon himself. In order to let Nezuko develop the blood demon art again, he would only use water breathing during this fight. However, once she finally uses her blood demon art, Tanjiro would let his abilities run free and would obliterate Rui using sun breathing. Thanks to Tanjiro's great strength this time around, Inosuke and Zenitsu would suffer only minimal injuries during this arc, while the Hashira would have much less cleanup on their hands afterwards. Many lower-level demon slayers would be saved as well, meaning that the core would have more members for future fights. This would prove especially useful once the Infinity Castle arc comes around. Anyway, after recovering in the Butterfly Mansion, Tanjiro would get to know the other Hashira, same as in the original story. This time around, the Hashira would be impressed by Tanjiro's strength and would see him as their equal. They would be a bit skeptical about him carrying a demon around, but he would convince them that Nezuko won't hurt any humans. Of course, this wouldn't stop Sanemi from trying to attack Nezuko again. Thankfully, with his increased strength, Tanjiro would be able to fight back this time around, standing his ground against Sanemi. This would make the Wind Hashira extremely angry, and he would prepare to go all out against Tanjiro. Before that could happen, however, Kagaya would intervene and calm Sanemi down. Using his ability to predict things, Kagaya would sense that Tanjiro and Nezuko are only there to help, and would order the other Hashira to accept them. The Hashira would then part ways, with the main group getting orders for their next assignment just like before: find the demon attacking passengers aboard the Mujin train. And guys, trust me, you are gonna be really surprised about how this arc goes. First, the group would meet with Rengoku at the train station, where Tanjiro would think back to his previous life. He would steel his resolve, vowing that he would not let Rengoku die this time. Initially, Tanjiro would tell the others that he can smell a demon near the front of the train, trying to lead them towards Enmu as best as he can without telling them about his previous life. Tanjiro would think that if they can kill Enmu earlier than before, they may be able to avoid the fight with Akaza entirely, as well as keep the train from derailing and killing a bunch of innocent civilians. With Tanjiro leading the others to Enmu, they would find the demon a lot quicker, and using Hinokami Kagura, Tanjiro would easily finish the fight. However, realizing that he is outmatched, Enmu would refuse to lose and would still derail the train in an effort to kill the Slayers. As the train starts crashing, Tanjiro would command the others to immediately start rescuing civilians. Considering that the train crashed much earlier this time around, Tanjiro would believe that Akaza likely won't show up. However, this is where he would be wrong. Closely following the train from the shadows, Akaza would suddenly jump out of the woods, shocking all the demon slayers present. Since all of them would be in relatively good shape after the quick fight with Enmu, Tanjiro, Rengoku, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Nezuko would all begin to fight with the Upper Moon 3 together. The battle would be fierce, with each one pushing themselves to their limits. One important thing to remember here is that Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Nezuko were still very weak at this point in the main story, so despite their best efforts, Akaza would easily defeat them. This would leave only Tanjiro and Rengoku on the battlefield. Determined not to let history repeat itself, Tanjiro would push himself past his limit, awakening his Slayer mark early. As he and Rengoku continued to fight, Akaza would realize that he is in way over his head and would begin to feel true fear for the first time since meeting Muzan. Seeing that he can't win this fight in time, Akaza would decide to cut his losses and flee before the sun comes up. However, this time, Tanjiro would be prepared for it. As Akaza attempts to run, Tanjiro would get ready to throw his sword just like before. Completely calm, Tanjiro would take a deep breath and steady his aim, hurling his sword straight through Akaza's neck. Not expecting this at all, Akaza would be taken completely off guard, his head severed in the process. And with that, Tanjiro would have successfully saved Rengoku, who would now live to fight with the others during the Infinity Castle. This would earn Tanjiro one hell of a reputation among the Hashira, especially after word of his and Rengoku's combined efforts to kill an Upper Moon gets around. After spending some time with Rengoku and recovering for a bit, Tanjiro and the others would soon get sent to the Entertainment District to investigate demon presence. Same as before, they would team up with Tenjin and immediately head there. In order to speed things up, Tanjiro would lie to the others again, saying how he can smell exactly where the demons are. Thanks to Tanjiro, the crew would find Gyutaro during the very first night and would immediately start the fight against him. Meanwhile, Zenitsu and Inosuke would go into the caves underground to rescue the hostages. As Tanjiro, Tenjin, and Nezuko fight against Gyutaro together, Tanjiro would immediately activate his Demon Slayer mark in order to gain an advantage. Seeing that Tanjiro is able to hold his own, Tenjin would leave him and Nezuko to fight alone while he goes to help Zenitsu and Inosuke against Daki. And to be completely honest, the demons wouldn't stand a chance in this battle. Using his sun breathing, Tanjiro would make easy work of Gyutaro and would slice his neck just as Tenjin slices Daki's. When the sun starts rising, Obanai would finally arrive at the scene and witness that all Slayers are alive and well. And yeah, in case you're wondering, this also means Tenjin would be ready for the final battle in the Infinity Castle since he didn't lose his arm. Anyways, since Tanjiro has defeated both Gyutaro and Akaza in this timeline, Kaguya would deem Tanjiro a major asset for the Demon Slayer Corps and would give him the title of Son Hashira. Tanjiro would take the title with pride, continuing to hone his abilities and develop his sun breathing even further, knowing that the toughest battles are still ahead of him. He would also talk to Kaguya about Tamayo, letting him know that she is an ally who is working to defeat Muzan as well, opening the door for them to start working together a bit earlier. During the Swordsmith Village, things would go similarly at the beginning, with Tanjiro bonding with Moichiro a bit and getting a new sword from the Yorishi doll. Since Tanjiro now knows everything about the Demon Slayer marks, he would tell Moichiro a bit about them and would assure him that he believes he can unlock its abilities as well. As night falls and battle begins, Moichiro would engage Gyoko while Tanjiro and Genya begin to fight the split forms of Hantengu. The battle would progress much quicker this time, with Tanjiro knowing the demon's weaknesses and where to strike. He would also use his sense of smell to try and hunt down the main body before they can all merge into the final form. This would completely surprise the demon, and with one swift swing of the blade, Tanjiro would behead Hantengu's main body, finishing the fight before Mitsuri even arrives. As the sun comes up, Tanjiro would encourage Nezuko to come out, telling her that everything will be fine. Listening to her brother, Nezuko would step out into the sunlight, and everyone would be surprised to see that she is completely unharmed. And even though everything went great for Tanjiro so far in this timeline, he would know that the most important battle is still ahead of him, and would soon start preparing for the final battle in the Infinity Castle. However, before that, Hashira training begins, with Rengoku and Tenjin training alongside everyone and awakening their Demon Slayer marks. Rengoku's appear as long billowing flames that work their way from his hands up to his elbows. Meanwhile, Tenjin's mark appears as musical notes on his cheek. Besides this, everything else during this arc goes pretty much the same, and the night of the final confrontation soon arrives. Same as before, Muzan kills Kaguya and gets caught in the trap set up for him. The first demon still makes it out alive though, and the Infinity Castle opens up, swallowing the entire Demon Slayer Corps. As the Slayers fall through the Infinity Castle, Tanjiro knows that things are different this time. They've defeated Akaza, meaning he and Gyu are freed up to assist the other Hashira. Meanwhile, Rengoku and Tenjin are with them this time, which should make things much easier as well. Unfortunately, Shinobu would still end up alone and would have to engage Doma by herself. This goes the same as in the original timeline, with her losing her life and poisoning the demon. The only difference here is that Tanjiro would arrive soon after to help Inosuke and Kanao finish Doma off. With their combined forces, they would easily overpower the weakened Doma with minimal injuries. While the other Hashira are busy fighting their own battles, Zenitsu would pursue his own revenge against Kagaku as he did before, closing out the story on their rivalry and showing that he has truly mastered his thunder breathing technique. Same as before, he would reveal his own 7th form of thunder breathing and would put his rival to rest. As this is happening, Tanjiro would rush through the Infinity Castle, hoping to get to the other battles in time in order not to let the other Hashira die. Listening to the crows, Tanjiro would soon learn Kokoshibo's location and would decide to head straight towards him. Every surviving Hashira alongside Inosuke, Kanao, and Genya would then take on Kokoshibo together. And although Kokoshibo is one hell of a fighter, he would be up against 6 Hashira here. And yeah, I don't think even he would stand a chance in this fight. As Tanjiro prepares to cut his head off with his sun-breathing techniques, Kokoshibo would remember his brother, Yorichi. Realizing that he was wrong all along, Kokoshibo would accept his fate. In a split second, Tanjiro would finish his attack and the strongest upper moon ever would fall defeated. Tanjiro would take a brief moment to lay Michikatsu's soul to rest, vowing that he will end Muzan so that nobody has to become a demon ever again. With that done, all demon slayers can finally turn their attention to the final threat, Muzan Kibutsuji. However, this is where Tanjiro would realize that he has made one big mistake. You see, although defeating the Upper Moons earlier might have seemed like a good idea, it would also mean that Tanjiro and the others have to stall Muzan even longer before the sun rises. Despite all the additional Hashira who are alive this time around, surviving against Muzan for an extra hour is going to be a complete nightmare. Tanjiro would immediately realize his mistake of defeating the other moons early and would try to strategize what they can do. However, he would be reassured by Rengoku that everything will be fine. The battle finally begins, and the Hashira jump towards Muzan, trying to keep him busy until dawn. Obanai and Sanemi begin the charge, each one attacking Muzan from different directions to draw his attention, weaving in and out as they try to help each other. When they get tired, the others jump in, so Muzan would constantly have a fresh Hashira to worry about. Realizing that this battle is going to be much tougher than they thought, each Slayer would immediately activate their mark in order to go all out. Watching his friends fight with everything they've got, especially the ones who weren't there in the original timeline, Tanjiro would vow to defeat Muzan without anyone dying and would rush towards him with his sun breathing. Getting cut by Tanjiro's breathing techniques would immediately remind Muzan of Yoriichi, and he would feel the fear he hasn't felt in a long time. However, despite the Hashira's strength, Muzan would still manage to injure a bunch of them. Sanemi would suffer a slash to his gut, almost spilling his insides everywhere. Obanai would lose a leg during an attack, but would still manage to fight on using his snake-like movements. During one of his attacks, Rengoku would also lose an arm, while Tenjin narrowly dodges a slash and loses an ear in the process. Despite all of this though, the Corps would suffer no deaths as everyone gives it their all to attack Muzan while protecting one another. They would keep this up for hours, never giving Muzan any time to breathe. Soon, the sun would begin to rise, which would prompt Tanjiro to jump in for one final attack. Tanjiro has prepared for this moment his entire second life, and as he gets ready to attack, the other Hashira would jump in as well in order to clear his path. By the time he makes it to the original demon, Tanjiro's blade would be glowing a bright red, and using his Hinokami Kagura, he would slice right through Muzan's neck. Of course, this wouldn't kill Muzan, and he would still attempt to regenerate, but with the sun already up, all of his efforts would be in vain. The rest of the battle plays out pretty much the same, with Muzan doing anything he can to survive, but the Slayers stopping him at every turn. This time, Tanjiro would also be careful not to fall for Muzan's trap and wouldn't be transformed into a demon. Before long, Muzan would start disintegrating on the ground, helpless, cursing the demon slayers and saying that it's like they knew everything he would do in advance.